This is the story of the Shulamite woman, a tale of God's love, devotion, and the longing of the heart. Unlike the stories of queens or warriors, hers is one of quiet strength, of choosing love not for power or wealth, but for something deeper, something real. True love, the love that comes from God, is not about status or possession. It is about devotion, commitment, and faithfulness. Love, when pure, is stronger than fear, more powerful than any throne, and endures even in separation. The warm night air carried the scent of jasmine and myrrh, wrapping the hills of Shunem in a quiet embrace. The sky stretched wide above, heavy with stars that pulsed like whispers of old stories. The Shulamite woman sat at the edge of a hidden spring, her bare feet skimming the water. This place, the secret place, had always been hers. It was where she came to think, to dream, to escape the expectations of her family and the weight of the vineyard. But tonight, she was not alone. Footsteps approached softly, careful not to disturb the stillness. She did not need to turn around to know who it was. "Do kings often wander the hills at night?" she asked without looking up. A low chuckle. "Only when something calls them." She glanced over her shoulder. There he was, Solomon, king of Israel, dressed in simple robes, his crown absent, his presence unmistakable. The lantern in his hand cast a soft golden light over his face, making the depth of his gaze even more intense. She smirked, turning back to the water. "And what exactly called you here?" "A voice." He stepped closer. "A woman who speaks like the wind moves, wild and unafraid." She scoffed. "Flattery? I thought wise kings use their words better." He laughed, lowering himself to sit beside her. "Would you prefer silence?" She tilted her head, studying him. "You are Solomon, the great king of Israel, builder of temples, writer of wisdom, ruler of a mighty nation." She looked away. "Why would a man like you care for a woman like me?" His voice was softer now. "Why do you assume I am the one who should be feared? Perhaps it is you who should be careful with me." She raised an eyebrow. "Careful? And why is that?" He smiled, reaching into the water and letting the coolness run through his fingers. "Because I have never met a woman I could not figure out." Her heart pounded at his words, but she hid it well. She was not a queen. She was not raised in palaces or trained to speak in courts. She was simply a woman of the land, free and untamed, unwilling to be owned, unwilling to be changed. But as she sat beside Solomon, the wisest king to ever rule, she wondered, had she finally met someone who could truly see her? And more than that, did she want to be seen? The dawn broke softly over the hills, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. The Shulamite woman stood at the edge of the vineyard, her fingers trailing over the vines, her thoughts tangled like the curling tendrils of the grapevines that wrapped around the trellises. The night before had been unlike any other. Solomon, the great king, had sought her, not as a ruler demanding obedience, nor as a man collecting another wife for his court, but as someone longing for something beyond what his wealth and wisdom had given him. He had spoken of devotion, of love that was not bound by treaties or thrones. But could she believe him? The world she knew was simple, steady, and rooted in the land beneath her feet. But the world of kings, his world, was filled with politics, alliances, and women who had been chosen not for love, but for what they could bring to the throne. A breeze stirred the leaves, carrying the scent of ripening fruit. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the morning settle over her. Do you love him?" The voice startled her. She turned to see the shepherd standing nearby, his dark eyes unreadable. She had not heard his footsteps. He was always quiet, moving with the ease of someone who understood the land better than most. His presence had once been as familiar to her as the rhythm of the seasons, but now something felt different. Her heart ached. "Why do you ask?" she said, though she already knew the answer. The shepherd stepped closer. "Because the king desires you, and the heart can only be given to one." She inhaled sharply. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of truth. Once, she had imagined her life alongside him, working the land, tending to the vineyards, laughing in the cool of the evening under the shade of the olive trees. But now, Solomon had come, offering a different kind of life, one of luxury, of honor, of a love that could be whispered in songs sung for generations. The shepherd watched her closely. "Do you think love is found in golden halls?" She shook her head. "No." "Then what is it?" She hesitated, looking down at her hands, hands that had worked, that had touched the earth, that had known the roughness of labor and the gentleness of care. "Love is steadfast," she said finally. "It does not waver when tested. It is not about power or possession." The shepherd nodded. "Then you already know the answer." She swallowed. "Do I?" He did not reach for her. He did not plead. He simply stood there, waiting, patient as the hills. Because love, real love, was never something taken, it was given. From the distance, the sound of approaching riders stirred the morning air. Her stomach tightened. She knew who it was. Solomon had come again. The shepherd held her gaze one last time. "Choose wisely," he murmured. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. She watched him go, her heart caught between two worlds, the king and the shepherd, a throne and a field, gold and earth. She had always believed love was a choice, and now she had to make hers. Would you like me to continue with part 3? The hoofbeats grew louder as Solomon's royal procession wound its way through the vineyard paths. The Shulamite woman stood motionless, her heart thudding in her chest. The air was thick with the scent of ripening fruit, but it could not mask the weight pressing upon her. She turned her gaze toward the hills where the shepherd had disappeared. His words still echoed in her mind, "Choose wisely." But how could she choose when both paths led to sacrifice? She did not have time to think further. The king had arrived. Solomon dismounted, his golden robe flowing behind him, his presence like the rising sun, warm yet commanding. His attendant stood at a respectful distance as he approached, his eyes searching hers. "You hesitate," he said, his voice smooth, unreadable. She exhaled slowly, "Because a heart cannot be given lightly." A small smile touched his lips. "And yet, you have already captured mine." She lowered her gaze, uncertainty twisting inside her. "Have I?" He lifted a hand, brushing his fingers gently under her chin, tilting her face toward his. "Do you doubt me?" She searched his eyes, those wise, knowing eyes that had seen more of the world than she could imagine. "You are a king, Solomon," she said softly. "You have built the greatest kingdom. You have everything a man could desire. So tell me, why do you seek a woman of the fields?" Solomon sighed, his hands dropping to his sides. "Because wealth and power do not fill an empty heart." He gestured toward the vineyard. I have palaces filled with gold, but I long for something that cannot be bought. When I look at you, I see something greater than riches. I see a love that is pure, untainted by politics or ambition." She frowned, searching his face. "And what of the women already in your court? What of the queens and daughters of kings? Did you not speak words of devotion to them as well?" A flicker of something passed through Solomon's expression, a shadow of regret. "I will not lie to you," he admitted. "My life has been filled with treaties and alliances, marriages built for the strength of a kingdom rather than the heart of a man. But you were not given to me through obligation. You were not brought to me in chains of expectation. You are here because I choose you." The words were intoxicating. To be chosen, not for duty, not for power, but for love. She felt the pull, the temptation of it, to be cherished by a king, to wear the garments of a queen, to have songs written in her honor, to be remembered in the halls of history. And yet, her thoughts drifted back to the shepherd. He had not promised wealth. He had not adorned her with jewels. He had simply loved her, steadfast, without demand. Solomon stepped closer, his voice softer now, more intimate. "Come with me. Leave these fields behind. Let me give you more than the world has offered you." The promise was sweet, but something deeper, something truer, pressed against her soul. "Love," she whispered, "is not proven in riches. It is proven in faithfulness." Solomon studied her, his expression unreadable. "You do not trust me." She sighed. "I do not trust the ways of kings." A long silence stretched between them. Solomon finally nodded, stepping back. His face was calm, but something inside him shifted. "I will not force you," he said, and there was something almost sad in his tone. "But I will wait." Then he turned, signaling to his attendants. She watched as they mounted their horses, the royal banners fluttering as they rode away. She did not call after him. She did not move, because deep inside she knew something. Love was never about grand gestures. It was about who remained when the world pulled in every direction, and she was beginning to see who had truly remained. The vineyard was silent after Solomon's departure, but her heart was anything but still. The Shulamite woman wandered through the vines, her hands brushing the leaves, her mind tangled in uncertainty. Solomon had spoken with such conviction. His words had been like honey, rich and smooth, offering her a place beside him, promising devotion. And yet, was love truly proven in what was promised or in what was already given? The thought sent her steps toward the hills where she had once walked freely, where laughter and shared labor had filled her days. She did not have to look far. The shepherd stood beneath the shade of an olive tree, his flock grazing in the fields beyond. He had seen the king's arrival just as he had seen her hesitation. Yet he had not come to fight for her, because love, real love, was not a battle for possession. It was a choice, freely given. She stopped a few feet away, her breath unsteady. He turned, his gaze calm, waiting. "You said love is a choice," she murmured. "And yet, you have not asked me to choose." The shepherd studied her before replying, "Because love cannot be forced. If you must be convinced to stay, then your heart is already gone." Her stomach tightened. "You would let me go?" His eyes softened. "I would not hold you where you do not wish to remain." The words cut her deeper than any demand could have. Solomon had come with splendor, with riches, with the promise of a throne. The shepherd had come with nothing, only the quiet, unwavering truth of his love. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. I do not need a palace. I do not need gold. She reached out, taking his hand, his fingers rough and worn from the work of the fields. I need faithfulness, she said. I need love that does not change with seasons, love that does not speak words it does not mean. The shepherd exhaled, his shoulders relaxing as if a great weight had lifted. Then you have all you need. She smiled, for the first time feeling certain of her path. Love was not found in wealth, nor in the flattery of a king's voice. It was found where hearts were truly known, and she was home. The sun hung low over the fields, casting long golden shadows over the land. The Shulamite woman walked alongside the shepherd, the familiar rhythm of the countryside surrounding them, the rustle of the olive trees, the hum of insects in the vineyard, the distant bleating of sheep. It was a world she had always known, one filled with simplicity and toil, but also with a quiet kind of joy. And yet in the back of her mind the king's offer still lingered. Solomon had spoken of devotion, of love that could outshine any jewel, of a life wrapped in splendor away from hardship. But was love meant to be a thing of riches? Or was love something greater? Something that could not be bought or bartered? The shepherd walked beside her, his presence steady as ever. He did not ask about Solomon. He did not press her for answers. Instead, he let her wrestle with the truth on her own. Finally, she stopped walking, turning to face him. What if I had gone with him? The shepherd's dark eyes met hers, unshaken. Then I would have let you go. Her chest tightened. Without a fight? A small smile touched his lips. Love is not a war to be won. If it must be fought for, it is no longer love, it is possession. She frowned, considering his words. But what if I had been deceived? What if I had believed that the riches, the status, the security were what love truly was? The shepherd's gaze was calm. Then one day, when the gold faded and the songs turned to silence, you would have remembered. Remembered what? He reached out, taking her hand gently. That love was never in the palace. That love was never in the wealth. That love was here. The truth of it settled deep inside her. The world had always tried to sell love as something to be earned, something that could be gained through beauty, power, or status. But God's love was never given to the highest bidder. God's love had always been given freely, without expectation, without price. The greatest love was not one of riches, but one of sacrifice. She looked down at their joined hands, at the roughness of his palms, at the marks of labor that came from working the land. Solomon had soft hands, hands that held scepters and scrolls, hands that had never needed to toil. The shepherd's hands were worn, yet steady. Hands that had tended, that had cared, that had given without expecting anything in return. She thought of Christ, of the way he loved, not for gain, not for what the world could offer, but because love was the greatest gift he could give. The kind of love that would never leave. She inhaled deeply. If Solomon returns, I must give him my answer. The shepherd nodded, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. Then be sure it is an answer you will not regret. She met his gaze. I will not. Because now she knew. Love is not proven in grand gestures or lavish gifts. Love is proven in who stays when the world tries to pull you away. And she knew where her heart belonged. The palace gates loomed ahead, gleaming in the morning light. The Shulamite woman stood at the threshold, her heart steady but her thoughts weighed down with the choice she had already made. Solomon had called for her one last time. She could have ignored the summons. She could have stayed in the fields, hidden among the vines, far from the golden halls and the whispered promises of power. But this was not just about Solomon. This was about truth, about making her choice known. As she stepped into the palace courtyard, she was immediately struck by its beauty. The walls carved with intricate designs, the scent of myrrh and incense drifting through the air, the voices of women laughing softly in shaded gardens. This was a place of ease, of comfort, of abundance. A place where a woman could lose herself in the luxury of never having to toil under the sun. But was that truly living? She walked deeper into the palace, past courtyards and balconies where noble women lounged in silks, past halls lined with treasures that only a king could possess. Yet with every step, she felt the weight of it all, the burden of emptiness wrapped in gold. She reached the chamber where Solomon waited. He sat upon a low couch, his robes rich with embroidery, his crown set aside on a nearby table. He did not look like a ruler in that moment. He looked like a man who had everything, yet was still searching. "You came," he said, his voice carrying both relief and expectation. She gave a small nod. "I had to." He studied her for a long moment, his gaze searching hers. "I have seen women of great beauty, daughters of kings, those whose presence alone could command kingdoms." He paused, his voice quieter now. "But none have made me hesitate as you have." She exhaled slowly, preparing herself. "Solomon, you are a great king, a wise ruler, a man whose name will be remembered for generations." She took a step forward, holding his gaze. "But I am not meant for this life." His expression did not change, but she saw something flicker in his eyes, something like regret. "You would refuse a throne?" he asked softly. "Yes." His jaw tightened. "Why?" She swallowed. "Because love cannot be bought, nor can it be demanded. It is not something to be collected like riches. Love is a covenant, not a contract." Solomon was silent. She continued, her voice unwavering. "I know the love I seek. It is the love that does not change with the seasons, that does not grow restless when something new arises. It is a love that stays, not because it has to, but because it chooses to." His fingers traced the rim of his goblet, thoughtful. "And you believe this shepherd's love is greater than what I can offer you?" She gave a soft smile, one filled with certainty. "Yes, because his love is real. And I would rather have a simple life filled with true love than a throne built on fleeting desires." Solomon nodded slowly, leaning back. He was not angry. He was not wounded. He understood. He, of all men, knew the vanity of the world's riches. He had written about it. He had lived it. Finally, he let out a quiet chuckle, shaking his head. "The greatest of kings, and yet I cannot have the one thing I desire most." She stepped forward, her voice gentle. "Solomon, you have everything this world can give, but love, true love, is not found in possessing. It is found in giving, in choosing, in sacrificing." His eyes met hers, something almost sorrowful in them. "Perhaps I have spent too much time learning wisdom, and not enough time learning love." She smiled softly. "Perhaps." For a long moment, They stood in silence. Then Solomon sighed and rose to his feet. "Go to him then." She did not hesitate. She turned and left the palace, stepping back into the open air, back into the sunlight, back into freedom. She had made her choice. And for the first time, she felt no doubt, because love is not found in crowns or palaces. It is found in the heart that chooses to stay when all else fades. And her heart had chosen well. The warm breeze carried the scent of ripening fruit through the fields as the Shulamite woman walked home. Home. Not a palace, not a throne, not a life of splendor, but a place where love was real, where hearts were known, where faithfulness mattered more than riches. She had left behind the temptation of wealth, the lure of a life filled with ease and admiration. But she had gained something far greater. As she approached the vineyard, she saw him, the shepherd. He stood at the edge of the field, waiting, not with expectation, not with demand, but with patience. He had never chased her. He had never forced her to choose him. He had simply loved her. And when she had been tempted by all the world could offer, it was his love. The kind that did not waver, did not demand, did not fade, that had led her home. She stepped forward, her heart steady, her voice soft. "I have returned." The shepherd nodded, a quiet smile on his lips. "I knew you would." She studied his face, the lines of labor, the strength of his hands, the steadiness in his eyes. "I almost left," she admitted. "I almost believed that love was something to be taken, something to be measured in gifts and promises of power." He remained silent, letting her speak. "But love," she continued, "is not found in crowns or palaces. It is not proven by riches or grand gestures." She reached for his hand, her fingers tracing over his calloused palm. "It is proven in who stays when the world tries to pull you away." The shepherd's thumb brushed over her hand, gentle but firm. "And now you know what you truly desire." She nodded. "I desire love that does not fade, love that does not change with seasons, love that reflects the faithfulness of God." Because that was the lesson she had learned. Love was not just about passion, it was about commitment. Love was not about power, it was about sacrifice. Love was not found in what a man could give, it was found in the heart that would never turn away. She had seen the riches of a king, yet they could not compare to the riches of a love that remained true. She had heard the words of a ruler, but they could not compare to the steadfast devotion of a man who had never abandoned her. And in that moment, she understood something deeper. This was the kind of love God had for his people, a love that was not dependent on status or perfection, a love that did not fade when the world offered something better, a love that endured even when tested. She smiled, her heart light. "Solomon may write songs about love, but I have found the love worth singing about." The shepherd chuckled. "And will you stay this time?" She squeezed his hand. "I will stay. Because love is not about where you are, it is about who you are with." And she knew without a doubt she had made the right choice. Because true love does not change. True love does not fade. True love, the kind that reflects God's faithfulness, is worth more than all the treasures of a king. And as she stood there, in the warmth of the sun, in the embrace of the one who had always loved her, she knew. She was finally home. She knew. She was finally home.